Good morning, respected chapter sir, principal ma'am, and all the dear teachers present here. Today, I, Pratibha, is going to conduct in-house training on the topic managing change. We know that in 1990s, change was a byword of education. The accelerating pace of societal change has altered both the public expectations for schools and the nature of the students who attend them. Communities are expecting more from schools. At the same time, schools are being challenged by increasing numbers of poor and minority students who have been traditionally undeserved. Change is not something that happens only to schools, but it is a force educators must learn to change or manage effectively if they are to recreate schools to meet the needs of the 21st century. Fortunately, in the past 50 years, researchers have learned a great deal about the educational change process that now makes it possible to design schools in which all students will experience success. The following tips should be viewed as a primer that may lead to a more hopeful and school view of the school improvement process. Educate leaders. Successful implementation of change efforts require that the Board of Education, district administrators, and teacher leaders learn about the change process. Knowing what is involved leads to better planning, more realistic expectations, and a sense of what to anticipate throughout the multi-year process. School leaders also need opportunities to study cutting edge research and theory so that improvement plans reflect up to date developments in the field. Taking an unapologetic approach to curriculum overhaul. Use a systems approach. As Ted Sizer has said, things remain the same because it is impossible to change every or very much without changing most of it. Fragmented, piecemeal improvement efforts really benefit students because change in any part of the system affects all other parts. It is critical that the organization be viewed in its entirety as a change is being planned. Now, what teachers value most in their principles? Use a team approach that recognizes that all stakeholders have an essential role to play in the improvement process. No one person knows best how to solve educational problems. School board members, superintendents, principals, and other administrators have a critical role. But to do so, school system consultants and teachers, for that matter, so do parents, students, and community members. The synergy that flows from people with various perspectives produces high quality ideas and better solutions to problems. Some teachers won't get vaccinated even with a mandate. What should schools do about it? Sheer power. Critics of previous reform efforts argue that power must be shifted from the central office to schools. Others are adamant that power not only be shared with principals and teachers, but also with the students. Having power without appropriate support, however, may condemn a change effort to failure. For instance, empower teachers who are not given sufficient training for their new role or time for discussion and reflection may find themselves victims of ill-conceived reform. Plan, but hold your plans loosely. While strategic planning at the district department and school levels is essential, Not everything that needs to be known can be known early. Adaptability will be required to respond to unforeseen events or to integrate understandings that can only be acquired through involvement in the process. Don't get trapped by trying to solve all problems during the planning phase. At some point, improvement efforts must begin that will provide additional insights that can then be incorporated into the next phase. Recognize the subtle tension between the importance of establishing readiness for change and the need to get people to try out new practices. While participants need to develop the psychological and intellectual readiness that lead to positive attitudes about the proposed change, there is evidence that the successful implementation of new practices that improve student learning will itself create more favorable attitudes. Provide lots of training and other staff development support. Significant changes require that everyone who affects students' learning require new attitudes, knowledge, and skills. The staff development programs must be well designed and include follow-up activities such as study groups and on-the-job coaching. Recognize that professional growth can occur in various ways, including inquiry into the current practice and involvement in an improvement program. Four changes school can make to recruit teachers of color and keep them around. Make certain that the innovative practices recommended to teachers are research based and classroom friendly. While trying out unproven practices is sometimes inappropriate, most school systems will need to focus on practices such as cooperative learning that have been demonstrated to enhance various student outcomes. Recognize that change happens to people. The affective side of professional life cannot be ignored if change efforts are to be successful. Because change is a highly personal process. Participants typically are concerned about how the change will affect them. Those affected often wonder about whether they are up to the task, if the new practices will require more work, and how they may be seen by their peers. By seeking to understand these concerns and design strategies to address them, school leaders ease tensions and pave the way for successful innovations. Be prepared for the implementation dip. Performance often dips when new skills are first practiced. This may be discouraging to both the program planners and the implementers of the new practice, who may be tempted to return to their old ways. It is vital that participants be informed about this tip and that evaluation of their program or individuals not occur until implementation programs have had a chance to be resolved. Help people develop an intellectual understanding of a new practices. Each educator must have opportunities to deal intellectually with the innovation and to make the change meaningful to himself or herself. Simply being told to do something different because it is desirable is almost always insufficient to help people truly understand the innovation. Participants need a change to discuss the next practices, observe one another, and try the practices out on the job before they will make them their own. both intellectually and behaviorally. Search out paradigm shifters and encourage paradigm pioneers. According to the futurist Joel Parker, paradigm shifters are individuals who create innovative approaches to solving intractable problems long before others see the need for a new set of rules and procedures. Paradigm pioneers are those who get a jump on the change process by being the first, or as an act of faith, to try out the new paradigm. Continually scan the fringes for paradigm shifters and listen carefully and non judgmentally to their ideas. Because they are often outsiders, it is easy to dismiss their suggestions. Support paradigm pioneers within the system who want to try out these new approaches. Value intuitive hunches, but don't build system-wide changes solely around them, and encourage risk-taking. Let them experiment free from the burden of immediate program evaluation while they tinker with the innovation. Take the long view in spite of intense political and economical pressure for reform. Change takes time. It is counterproductive to push human beings and the organizations in which they work at a pace faster than the rate at which change can be assimilated. What is most important is that the school system have a clear, compelling vision for its future and that improvement in job performance and student overcomes be significant and continuous. Remember to create successes along the way and recognize contributions so that momentum is maintained. H.L. Mencken observed that for every deep and complex problem facing our society, there is a simple answer, and it's wrong. Examining trends, anticipating new paradigms, and successfully managing change these turbulent times are no simple task, but they are exactly the challenges educational leaders faced in the 1990s. We must become students of the change process. Understanding and leading change management in schools 2020 guide. Everything that we need to know. Educational institutions, just like all other organizations, undergo change regularly. But change doesn't necessarily bring improvement. It all depends upon how well implementing change in schools is done. Change in educational institutions may be due to new state educational requirements, introducing new technology into the classroom, or updates in textbooks and teaching methods. One of the biggest impacts seen recently that calls for leading change in schools has been the coronavirus pandemic, which completely changed the educational process for students and teachers all around the world. Organizational change in education doesn't just happen by giving a school the new process, tools, or methods. They need to change too. It has to be guided with the best change management strategies. Change management in higher education as well as primary grades involves several steps to successfully guide an institution or school district through a change. What you will learn in this article, we will look at the importance of change management in the education sector and answer several important questions, including Why is change important in education? Why changes should be made in schools? What is the best process for implementing change in education? How do you implement change in schools? That is for people. What are some teacher tips? How do head teachers manage change in the school? How do you promote change in education? Anyone leading change in education knows that change only happens when people change their habits, and change management is focused on that fact. Teachers, administrators, and staff, students, and parents can all be impacted by a change and need to be considered when leading and managing change in educational institutions. The process involves unmolding old behaviors, training new practices and behaviors, and then reinforcing the new way of doing things. Successfully guiding people through that change process is the goal is the goal of change management in educational institutions. Why is change important in education? If we look at what schools go through at the beginning of any new school year, you can see that organizational change in education is happening continuously. The students are graduating and leaving. New students are enrolling and everyone moving up and changing their classroom and teachers. But beyond the student and staff changes, there are also other types of changes. The management, the kind that requires change management in schools and change management in higher education. Without upgrades to technology, curriculum, and other ways of doing things, schools become less effective and educational outcomes can suffer. Implementing change in schools is vital so that students and staff can benefit from new educational methods, new technologies, and can keep their students learning the things they need to in order to stay competitive in an ever evolving world. What changes should be made in schools? The factors leading change in schools can differ according to each educational institution. A university may need to rethink their tuition policies to compete with local colleges. Such elementary schools may be leading change in education policies to ensure the curriculum is appropriately diverse. It is important to the success of a change project that leading and managing change in education is done with a mission to make things better. If change management in educational institutions is done only for the monetary purpose, then there's likely to be resentment and difficulty making the changing stick. Some of the common changes discussed in schools when it comes to change management in educational institutions include improving student health, that is, adding more physical activity, then teaching more life skills, improvements to curriculum based upon recent studies, reimagining of how the school year is structured, procedural changes to prevent shooting incidents, incorporating online with offline instruction, improving teacher working conditions, adjusting physical environments for social distancing, improving social communications through the use of technology. Now, we will discuss about how to make the case of change management. Easily explain the value of change management to your leadership, key stakeholders, sponsors, and management with this ready to use change management presentation. What is change management in education? Change management in education is the process of adequately preparing an organization for the upcoming change, creating an implementation plan for leading change in schools and implementing the change. Change management in schools require knowledge of basics of change management, including change models that can provide a framework for change management in primary and change management in higher education. Implementing change in schools can easily go off the rails and cause a change to fail or not produce the desired results. People can be confused about what to do, resist the change altogether, or have inadequate training on the new process. Organizational change in education is easier when people leading and managing change are using change management best practices. This includes an outline of procedures for leading change in education that takes the stakeholders, students, teachers, staff partners, and parents into consideration. Successful change management in educational institutions use change tools and methodologies to implement and sustain a change. How do you implement change in education? The processes. Anyone leading and managing change in education using a change management model will see that activities involve both people and processes. We will discuss the processes first, then move on to the people part of the change. Whichever change management model you choose to use, for example, ADKA, Breaches, Lehman, etc., there will be certain processes that will be similar to a project planning process. Here is an overview of the types of processes you need to go through when planning change management in schools. Information gathering and prep. Before you can implement change management in higher education or elementary school levels, you should understand how the change will impact the stakeholders. This allows you to head off any potential resistance and ensure your training process will be adequate. When implementing change in schools, some of the processes in this information gathering and prep stage include impact assessment, readiness assessment, project assessment, stakeholder analysis, creating a change champion network, preparing for resistance management, creating a change management roadmap. Now, execution of change in education. Executing change management in schools is the doing part of your change management process. There is when you will be implementing change in schools, procedures, or processes according to your roadmap. This requires excellent communication, awareness of how the change is being received, and the ability to Adjust your organizational change in education according to the circumstances. Some of the processes you will go through while leading change in schools during this stage include change training plan, communications plan, coaching leadership, stakeholder management. Reinforcing the change in education. When you are leading a change in education, it's easy for people to fall back into old habits and not sustain the new procedures if you haven't gone through the reinforcement stage of leading and managing change in education. Too often, people think that after the go live date, their job is done as far as change management in educational institutions goes. But people that have gone through the change need to have continued support to help freeze those new behaviors. Some of the ways you can help reinforce change management in higher education, high schools, and primary schools are: continue to check in regularly with teachers to see how things are going. Create a change management in education frequently asked questions page as a helpful resource. Request stakeholders' feedback to assess change management in schools. Offer support for stakeholders with questions about the organization change in education. How do you implement change in schools? The people. The people part of change is perhaps the biggest job when dealing with change management in education. People are naturally resistant to change, so managing their experience and feelings about the change is important. People are going through their own individual processes while you are implementing change in schools, so the resistance, fears, anxiety, and other change related feelings need to be addressed. One of the modules that helps visualize the journey you need to take the stakeholders through when implementing change management in schools is called the Glossy Adverb Act model. Each letter provides a phase that people need to be guided through to achieve organizational change in education. A is for awareness of the change. D is for desire to change and adopt the new process. K means how they will go through knowledge of how they will go through that change. A ability and skills for the new process, and R is for the reinforcement and support to sustain the change. Teacher tips. How do head teachers manage change in the schools? In reviewing change management in higher education and primary education, we found some tips from a head teacher on how to handle change management in schools. Dr. Richard Stewart, a head teacher at the Woodruff School, offered the following tips to educators for change management in education. Remember that change is constant. Develop coping strategies to manage rapid organizational change in education. Delegate duties involved in change management in schools. Don't panic. A change project can be adjusted if things aren't going as planned. Use school to school collaboration for ideas from others on change management in education. How do you promote change in education? Once a change has been implemented that impacts into students, How can teachers help promote that change in education processes? Change management in schools requires an all hands on deck approach. While those managers implementing change in schools can help drive and change and make it happen, teachers are often needed to promote the change daily until it sticks with the students. Here are some tips for teachers for promoting, sustaining, and leading a change in schools in their classrooms. Set a good example. If students see a teacher doing something the old way, they will think it's okay to do that too. It's essential to model a positive change example. Set clear rules and guidelines. If rules need to be updated due to organizational change in education, make sure they are changed accordingly so there are no conflicting instructions. Communicate and be mindful. Use every opportunity to communicate about the change, why it was done, and the benefits to everyone. Mindfully mention the benefits of the change when they are being experienced in the classroom. Use positive reinforcement. Change management in education requires positive reinforcement to motivate behavior of the students to sustain newly changed behavior. No matter how someone is leading change in educational institutions, it can cause resentment, anxiety, and feelings of resistance. That's why it's important to follow proper change management in education modules. Change management modules and methodologies offer a roadmap to navigating both the process and people side to change. Going through change management processes while implementing change in schools can help ensure a change project is successful and produces the desired results. It can also help those impacted by the change get through it feeling excited about the change rather than resisting it. Going through the change management processes when implementing change in schools can help ensure a change project is successful. Now we will see what are the best strategies for managing change in schools. We have come to accept that just about the only thing that seems to be constant in this day and age is change. But we sometimes don't spend enough time thinking about how to manage change. Here are some things to have in mind before undertaking any significant change within a school environment. First one is manage the perception. Many people see changes as something that just happens, something that's done to them without their consent and outside their control. Sometimes this is true, but for most undertakings within a school environment, teachers and administrators have some autonomy as to how or even if change is affected. The more opportunity and encouragement people are given to have some input, the more control they will feel and the more buy-in will occur with the staff. Research shows pretty clearly that a greater sense of ownership is more likely to lead to successful change implementation within an organization. Make change a part of school culture. This is the second point. Just as some people are more comfortable with moving or change than others, some organizations are more comfortable with change. For example, schools where change is anathema and they can do exist, starting with small but visible changes that make a positive difference is the key. As these small wins accumulate, staff members become more open to try out new things. If something that's undertaken doesn't work or has unintended consequences, don't hide it. Failure is also a learning experience. Dealing effectively with setbacks is critical if change is going to be an accepted part of a school's culture. But jumping in with both feet, trying to impose significant change on a staff before its members are comfortable, new ideas and processes will tune the project before it's even started. Appreciate the skeptics. When someone is questioning a proposed change, the first reaction can be to get frustrated or even angry. Keep in mind, though, that it's always good to have skeptics in the mix. They ask the tough questions. If someone poses a reasonable question for which we can't provide a reasonable answer, then we need to rethink something that's being proposed. It's great to be optimistic about new initiatives, but the skeptics are the ones that keep us grounded in reality. Know the history of change within the organization. Before moving forward with new ideas, always look to the past. What was the last significant initiative? When was it undertaken? What impacts has it had? Organizations that undergo change too often for perpetually tend to become jaded about new ideas, and organizations that have had negative experiences with change will be much more reticent to try new things. There are no hard and fast rules, but as with many things in life, looking to the past can provide vital information regarding how things may or may not work moving forward. Always always be aware of preconceived notions. There are many stakeholders in education, students of course, but of course administrators, teachers and parents. All members of the latter three groups have been to school and most of them have some preconceived notions as to what a school should be about. After all, the structures of the school, both physical and metaphorical, have changed little over the past 200 years. However, maintaining the status quo much longer is looking increasingly difficult, not to mention counterproductive. Change leaders must consider and respect individual notions of what school should look like, while at the same time convincing people that what they are proposing will be better. It will be better. Not all preconceived ideas can be dispelled. After all, there are people that would rather not let common sense and reason get in the way of their opinion. But being aware of people, preconceptions, and yes, prejudices can change management is a process of continually renewing an organization's direction, structure, and capabilities to serve the ever-changing needs of external and internal customers. It is clear that both the theory and research are needed for a better understanding of the process of change in organizations. The purpose of this change is to discuss a variety of theoretical approaches to the management. Now, Lewin presents a fundamental description of change that has been incorporated into many organizational consultants and managers using models of organizations in their attempts to understand and direct the process of systematic change. Lewin's perspective describes three basic steps that are inherent in any change process. The first step involves unfreezing the present level of the behavior. An example of this unfreezing would be a series of management training sessions in which the need for change is controvertibly implemented. The second step is called movement and involves taking action to change the organization's social system from its original level of behavior or operation to a new level. Finally, the third step is called refreezing. This involves establishing a process that ensures the new levels of behavior will be relatively secure against reversion to prior modes of operation. Even though this three-step model was adopted as a general framework for understanding the process of organizational change, several authors have therefore developed Levin's framework in an attempt to make it more practical. Although the planned approach to change is long established and held to be highly effective, it has come under increasing criticism since the early 1980s. Firstly, it is suggested that the approach emphasis is on small scale and incremental change that is therefore not applicable to situations that require rapid and transformational change. Secondly, the planned approach is based on the assumptions that organizations operate under constant conditions and that they can move in a pre-planned manner from one stable state to another. These assumptions are however questioned by several authors who argue that the current fast-changing environment increasingly weakens this theory. Moreover, it is suggested that organizational change is more an open-ended and continuous process than a set of predetermined set of discrete and self-contained events. Thirdly, the approach of planned change in those situations where more directive approaches were required. This can be a situation of crisis which requires major and rapid change and does not allow scope for widespread consultation or involvement. Finally, the critics urge that the planned approach to change presumes that all stakeholders in a change project are keen and interested in implementing it, and that a common agreement can be reached. In response to this criticism, the emergent approach has came out. Rather than seeing change to be top-down driven, the emergent approach tends to see change driven from the bottom up. Emergent change approach emphasizes the fact that nature of the change cannot be brought and determined in advance. Emergent change indicates underline that success management of organizational transition has no simple prescription due to temporary and contextual factors. Change cannot be described as a series of logical decision-making activities or a single reaction to counterpart situational conditions. Therefore, a successful change is less dependent on detailed plans and designs, and understanding complexity of relevant conditions and defining a series of valid options are more important. The approach suggests change to be so rapid that it is impossible for senior managers effectively to identify, plan, and implement the necessary organizational responses. The approach stresses a promotion of extensive and in-depth understanding of strategy, structure, system, people, style, and culture, and how these can in-depth understanding of strategy, so that how these can function either as sources of inertia that can block change or alternatively as levers to encourage an effective change process. Application to any model when carrying out the change is a very difficult process. Context and content of change vary considerably. It may be hard to figure out what to do and where to start. As a response in this difficulty, there are suggestions in the literature for managers, leaders, principals, teachers. Here are few of them. Determine the factors which oppose or facilitate change. This principle is very important in planning any change. Then, build a broad coalition for the change. Carrying out change is a major task and requires broad support. Fill key positions with competent change agents during change process. Key positions in the institution must be committed to the change. If these positions are not committed, process of change will be slow, difficult, and blocked altogether. Use task manager or task forces to guide implementation. If the change is substantial, using project teams to work may help the change processes. Make dramatic, symbolic change, illustrating many illustrating significant changes and descriptive and symbolic examples can have effect on the way the change is perceived and understood. Implement change initially on a small scale, making a change in a small part of the system can provide a tangible evidence of the feasibility and benefits of a change. Change relevant aspects of the organizational structure usually an organizational change require a change in the structure of the institution. But This suggestion is not confused to be restructuring instead of implementation. Monitor the progress of change. Monitoring change is also very important for many reasons. Monitoring enables optimization, coordination of different aspects of change, collection of all information about the effects on all aspects of organizations, generate a sense of urgency about the need for a change. The perception of the need for change can fade in time. Creating a sense of urgency can energize those who participate in the change and help to recreate the desire for the change. Prepare people who are within the scope of the change must be prepared for change process. The most important preparation activity that must be made on emotional aspects of change. Help people cope with the emotional pain of change. Many of our responses to change is emotional and therefore change process can cause grief and pain. The sense of losing existing values and the feeling of bereavement at the loss of the old methods are emotional pains that people face during change process. Inform people about the progress which occur during change process. In order to help maintain commitment to change, experiences and events at all levels of change process, especially those which take place behind the scenes, must be told to people who are in the scope of the change, which take place behind the scenes must be told to people who are within the scope of the change. And such people must be informed. This can also significantly reduce fantasies that may be the result of the fantasies created by not knowing what is going on. Show continued to commitment to the change at all stages. It is an essential task for the leader of the change to continually express the sense of commitment to change and to emphasize the commitment to be changed by various means. Empower people during the implementation process of the change. Where the change is imposed by the top management of the organization, it is likely that implementation of the change in all the sections of the organization will fail. Empowering members of the organization to implement the change will release the beneficial energy within the organization. These guidelines provide major contributions to more efficient management of change and control the change. This book also sets out 6 rules for managing organizational change successfully. These rules are as follows. Establish a work order which is necessary for change. Think through the change and anticipate issues and problems. Create informal discussions, setting an altar to receive feedback on teaching principles of process and contents of the change. Encourage and develop our participants. Welcome the objections of those who participate in change. Be open and prepare to change and monitor, support, and reinforce the change. The four lessons on how to do change management at our school. We have a great idea to put a project in place, such as curriculum mapping. It's a win for teachers, a win for administrators, and a win for students. But no matter how great that idea is, or how many people stand to benefit, you'll still encounter the same challenge getting that idea implemented. It's becoming a change management project. It's no secret. We get set in our ways. Once we figure out how to do things, we create a path and anything of note. Well, we would rather stick to what we know. Change is the big unknown. So when you announce that you are starting a curriculum mapping initiative, you are not just giving people new tasks to do or overhauling a process. You are also dealing with an emotional response and cultural shift that spreads throughout the school and potentially the district. No wonder it seems too hard to do. But it turns out tried and true change management practices can help us turn anxious hand wringing into eager applause when we roll out new initiatives. We just need to change the way we approach those initiatives. Change management. When we talk about change within an organization, we are talking largely about initiatives that disrupts the way people do their day-to-day jobs. There are many schools of thought when it comes to managing their kind of change, but they generally boil down to the same idea, giving it a defined structure and process to reach a specific outcome. Organizational change management exists as a specialized practice and discipline because change is risky, often meets resistance, and it is not easy to define. The good news, experts have thoroughly studied ways of identifying and mitigating risk and overcoming apprehension to launch successful projects. Whether it's an organizational restructure, an acquisition, a new core technology, or even crisis like Y2K. Great for business, but what does that have to do with your school and your curriculum? Education doesn't stand still. Slide rules give way to calculators, which give way to mobile phones and tablets. Lunch menus include lunch menus include healthy options like salads alongside chicken nuggets, while the classroom allergens are tightly controlled in classrooms. Cursive writing, not part of the common core. Library books and textbooks are available on tablets and laptop computers. Class discussions continue online after hours. Instruction and assessment can now be personalized to each student. If we don't make an effort to change, we will stagnate. If we are going to keep moving forward, we need to embrace the fact that change is inevitable. Like a company introducing a new process, curriculum mapping means asking teachers and administrators to do things differently. There's a learning curve to get started. There's an investment in time and resources. Once you have decided that you are ready to start the change management project at curriculum mapping, your next step is putting a plan in place. One that doesn't just outline what those new tasks are, but also helps make a cultural and emotional shift. Think of it in your four phases: engage, sponsorship, build a team, plan, and so these are about how to manage change in the school after the pandemic.